За хвилину почуємо звіт заступника керівника інформаційно-аналітичного центру РНБО України Володимира Полового щодо останніх подій у зоні конфлікту на сході України. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. In a moment we will hear a report by Volodymyr Polyoviy, Deputy Head of the Information Analytical Center of the National Defense and Security Council of Ukraine on the latest developments in the anti-terrorist operation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The situation in Donetsk and Luhansk regions has not changed much. Terrorists continue shell and attacking ATO forces. Our military men make raids and destroy fire units of the enemy using artillery. The new trend of this week is fights between different gangs of terrorists in Luhansk region, and they publicly blame each other in stealing cargoes from Russian Federation that come from Russian. Militants fight for the control of territories in order to have an opportunity to rob, to loot, and they can take coal and scrap to Russia. Systemic transportation of coal to Russia through the territories that are under control of the terrorists. That was noticed many times by OSCE mission. Yesterday, militants of terrorist organization Luhansk People's Republic in Antrasit, they attacked a group of Cossack gang, and they attacked the headquarters. According to the information, about 12 terrorists died, and including Prapor, and with a nickname. He's the common leader of the city. And terrorists recognized, informed about that fight. They call it Operation to Destroy Gangs. Who is a gang? They didn't inform who is a gang. Wasn't in relations between Cossacks and militants. That is a threat for local population. That's why we call local people to be careful, because fights between them in Krasny Luch and in Stakhanov is quite possible. That's where there are gangs of Cossacks. As to the military situation in ATO area, please show pictures. And yesterday we mentioned that our armed forces shot down a drone. Here's a picture. This is a Russian drone, Orlan, and here's marking. That was produced in 2009, and in which store they bought, terrorists bought it, we can only guess. Thank you. In Donetsk direction, militants are using artillery and small arms. And they 3 times they shelled upon the position of our military men on the territory of the airport. The strategic facilities under the control of our armed forces, and very soon there will be one more rotation. Using artillery, grenade launchers, they shelled on our checkpoints near Avdiivka, Piske, and Novobakhmudivka. Near Tonenke, our positions were shelled 2 times from Grad system. Near Novomykolaiv and Volnovakha region, they shelled our checkpoint using artillery. Ukrainian artillery fought back and neutralized those attacks. Near Debaltsevo, positions of Ukrainian military men were shelled near Nikishino, Orlivka, Ridkodub, Mius. There, militants used artillery, mortars, and grenade launchers. The situation in Luhansk is very difficult, and militants many times They shelled from different weapons upon our checkpoints near Stanitsa Luhanska, Shchatsia, Vilhovka, Hevka. And they don't stop shelling near Bakhmutivska highway. Terrorists, 2 times, using mortars and small arms, they shelled on National Guard's checkpoints near Donetsky, and using artillery, mortars, and grenade launchers positions near Trokhizvinka, Krymske, Novogorivka. Near Permansk, militants using grenade system, they used a position near Hrytsko and using mortars near Zolote. On Mariupol direction, near Mariupol, it was pretty calm, and there were no fights. In general, we lost 1 Ukrainian soldier, and 11 Ukrainian soldiers were wounded. Fights on the border outside of ATO were not noticed. In towns and villages unoccupied by militants and Russians, this humanitarian situation is a disaster. There are problems with the water supplies, gas supplies, heating, healthcare, food supplies, and people have no money. It is caused by it causes protest of local people. According to the data, food and other cargoes that come to cities that are under the control of militants, they keep it in warehouses, or armed groups they steal it. Since June 22, and that's when the first humanitarian convoy came to Ukraine. On the territory of Ukraine, about 950 wide cargo trucks or Kamaz came to Ukraine. If to calculate, we can speak about 42,750,000 of canned milk, or 32,200,000 canned meat. As we see, it's a lot of food, but a part of those trucks will have empty, others will deliver ammunition and fuel. Even in Russian mass media, there is information that up to 50% of humanitarian aid is stolen on the territory of Russia. We underline that nobody is controlling what they're taking out from Ukraine. Other cargoes, as we see, they don't reach people, but they are used by terrorists for their own enrichment. That's why this story with a Russian humanitarian convoy, that's a fiction made especially for the picture on TV. Ukraine demands that transition, providing humanitarian cargoes and distribution, it should be done according to international practice. When Red Cross receives the cargo and they provide it to people, deliver it to people who need that assistance. As it was mentioned many times, Ukraine is ready to send humanitarian cargoes to occupied territory. To occupy the territories of Donbass, but militants refuse to receive that assistance. As a result of attacks in Donetsk region, we have 32 towns without power in different districts, and also partially in Donetsk, Marinka, Horlivka, and Avdiivka. Yesterday on Luhansk thermal power station in Shchatsia, because of deficit of power, there was automatic switch off of energy block 13, and that caused partial loss of power in Severodonetsk, Starobilsk, Kreminna, Rubizhne. And now they are trying to fix the problem. Today, after 10 o'clock in the morning, terrorists over the night shelled using the Red system Popasna. They made 10 shots, and the shells exploded near Cheremishke. They they damaged the kindergarten and a school and one multi-story building. Also, they broke a gas pipe, and also the school, the ball of the school is out of power. One man died. The biggest, the highest intensity of shelling was upon Stanitsa Luhanska. They used a grad system, and then they used artillery and mortars, heavy artillery and mortars. People who were in Stanitsa the whole night, they were hiding in their cellars. They destroyed about 10 buildings. In the downtown, the heat pipe was destroyed, and there is hot water coming out. And so the heating system was switched off, and there is outage. They shelled also upon Valuйske village near Stanitsa. Partially or completely, they destroyed 18 buildings, 18 houses. We don't have information about casualties. In Donetsk, representatives of DNR captured administrative buildings of State Migration Service of Ukraine in Donetsk region and stole a lot of forms for Ukrainian passports. They can be used. They can use them for illegal process, and also for sending Russian mercenaries to other territories of Ukraine. As to international support today, in an official magazine of European Union, they published an additional list of 13 physical entities and 5 legal entities, and according to EU, they act against territorial integrity of Ukraine. Since the moment they were published, and sanctions come into force, and the list includes representatives of DNR and LNR, and political parties and organizations that participated in so-called illegal elections on the 2nd of November. Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, told that the Russian troops in the east of Ukraine. We were told that in Crimea there are no Russian soldiers. Then Russia recognized, accepted there were Russian soldiers there. Then I started to tell us that in the east of Ukraine there are no Russian soldiers. But according to our intelligence, Russian forces are present in Ukraine. Monitors on the border and in the region, they inform about movement of forces, equipment, and tanks. We have information that they have anti-aircraft systems. From where could they get such military equipment except from Russia? Thank you. That's all information for today. Your questions, please. Anybody has a question? About Stanitsa Luhanska, there is information from terrorists that yesterday 30 Ukrainian vehicles entered that place yesterday. Is it Stanitsa Luhanska is on the territory which is under the control of Ukrainian armed forces. So that's why movement of Ukrainian vehicles is quite possible, but there are no fights. But they shell that village from the territory which is under their occupation. More questions? If there's no question, I have a question as a moderator. Yesterday we had representatives from OSCE, and they told that their mission got into under shelling several times, and they called Ukrainian authorities and terrorists to provide security to OSCE monitors. How Ukrainian government is going to satisfy that request? Last shelling about which we know, and they informed us about, that was when that mission was moving on the territory which is on Ukrainian side, but the shelling was from the territories under the control of terrorists. Also, we had information that Ukraine decided to provide armored vehicles to OSCE. So, if they move on the territory which is under the control of Ukrainian armed forces, usually they are supported by a Ukrainian patrol, and that is for their own security.
To ask you questions. Nicolas Grovered, I am journalist based in Brussels normally, and I am correspondent in Brussels for French newspaper West France and Media Online Brussels 2 B2 on defense topics. I want to have a question not day by day, but to understand the evolution. Do you have the feeling there are an evolutions during the last days or from the agreement of Minsk of cessation to the solution? It is a situation on the ground. It is better, not better, bad, worse. To understand the evolution from the agreement of Minsk and during the last week or
Дякую за запитання.
Thank you for your question. Since the time when Minsk agreements were signed on the 5th of September, that agreement is a basic one, and that is a political document Ukraine is using when we decide on our policy as to the east of Ukraine. There is no change. We have not changed that agreement, but the agreement achieved in Minsk, it is only Ukrainian government complies and Ukrainian armed forces comply with that. But Russian mercenaries and terrorists do not comply with Minsk agreements. And it's about election, it concludes elections, and also about ceasefire and bloodshed on those territories. Thank you. If there is no other question, then we are done with our briefing. Thank you very much. And tomorrow, according to our